On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
When I first started, I was just helping people optimize every area of their life. But the thing was, I started realizing I could give someone the exact blueprint. I'm like, just follow this and you will be the most powerful version of yourself. Your energy, your mental alertness, your performance will just be on next level. But guess what? They wouldn't execute it. And then I started realizing okay, this is like a reoccurring theme. People know exactly what they need to get to the next level, but they fail to consistently do it. And so I've had a lot of experience with this and learning how the human brain works. So I started putting this in my program, and then the results from that section of the program were just exploding people's businesses. Like, not only that, but like their self-belief and their confidence in themselves to get their business to the next level.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
What's up, everybody? Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings. I'm your host. We're back at you. I got another king here on the stage. Adam Lucero, my brother. How we doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to be here.
Dude, it's freaking Monday. I love Mondays. You love Mondays?
I mean, every day is the same day for me. I mean, as entrepreneurs, it's like I work weekdays, I work weekends, time is whatever, just every moment's business orientated.
That's right. I was just this past week, I was floating the Colorado River with some of our Gathering the Kings mastermind members. And this is something that I haven't brought up in any shows yet, but we were talking about how collectively, all of us were like, our hobbies really are our business, our family, all the things that you just said, which is like, hey, just every day I kind of obsess about these same things over and over. Adam, I got to know, what kind of business do you have, my brother?
Basically, I help entrepreneurs kill procrastination so they see more consistency in their sales and revenue, and obviously scale to new heights they haven't been. That's it in plain simple terms, but I like to think of myself as total human optimization, every aspect, mindset, habits, nutrition, fitness, boost your energy levels. And from A to Z, I got you.
I love it, man. And when you say kill procrastination, it's almost as if you know that procrastination is a big deal or a potential pain point for some entrepreneurs.
So, I mean, again, when I first started, I was just helping people optimize every area of their life. But the thing was, I started realizing I could give someone the exact blueprint. I'm like, just follow this and you will be the most powerful version of yourself. Your energy, your mental alertness, your performance will just be on next level. But guess what? They wouldn't execute it. And then I started realizing okay, this is like a reoccurring theme. People know exactly what they need to get to the next level, but they fail to consistently do it. And so I've had a lot of experience with this and learning how the human brain works. So I started putting this in my program, and then the results from that section of the program were just exploding people's businesses. Like, not only that, but like their self-belief and their confidence in themselves to get their business to the next level. And so really that's kind of how it all stemmed from there. And basically it's transformed since then.
Dude, we're going to have a great conversation here because what we're talking about is the foundation for success in any area, right? Which is why your clients see so much result in all these areas because yes, we need to build consistency. Yes, we need to build habits, but underneath all those things, self-image, confidence, beliefs in ourselves, all of those things really, really matter. So you've done some research here. You've become a pro in this area. So tell us, why does the belief or the mind underneath it all, why does it matter so much?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always say it's like your business is a direct reflection of you. And so a good example I use is like, this is why you see some entrepreneurs just crush every single business time and time again on repeat. Elon Musk, perfect example. Not perfect because most people can't relate to him, but he's a good example nonetheless. Because it's like he has 3 separate multi-billion-dollar businesses, SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink. And he achieves this consistent results because of who he is, the way he thinks, the way he perceives the world, and the way he acts. And so really, this is why you see some people just conquer all areas of life. It's because of who they are and really their beliefs in themselves. But usually those beliefs change as a result of how powerfully you're operating or what level you operate at.
Yeah, and I would agree with that in my own history. It's like one begots the next, and it almost like builds on itself, right? So you can have a little bit of confidence, or even maybe not even confidence, and you're trying something brand new. I used to teach salespeople this all the time. It's like, if I could just get you to just take a little bit of action, then you get a little bit of result, and then you're like, oh, I can do it. And so that confidence is just like, boom, it's like electric, baby. And now we start making more phone calls or knocking more doors, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it literally builds on itself. What is that about the psyche that does this to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's just habits and momentum, and then there's probably chemical releases like dopamine and other factors like that. So it's a combination of all of them. But yeah, I mean, it's just a good example. It's like most people play the short-term game rather than the long-term. And so this is why, most people fail with their New Year's resolutions or fail to consistently work out. It's because they don't get to the point where they see the results and get the release of chemicals in their brain, or they don't solidify the habits and then they quit before then. But it's like, if you look at any of the most successful entrepreneurs, they all play the long term. And so it's really just getting yourself to a point where you play the long game instead of the short term of letting your emotions dictate or letting your circumstances dictate your actions or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, that long-term game, we all know it. Delayed gratification. You can categorize it in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
But you're right. Not many people do it. In fact, a hot name right now, Alex Hormozy, he just had a big weekend this past weekend with his book launch. But he talks about making decisions in a longer time horizon, right? And if I can make decisions as opposed to a couple of days, a couple of weeks, or instead of a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or instead of a couple of months, a couple of years, or instead of a couple of years, maybe a couple of decades, the impact of those decisions is typically bigger and better if I can hold out for that long. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, that's true with any entrepreneur I've ever seen. The ones that are multi-seven figures, they all play the long-term game. And so it's getting yourself to a state where you actually perform that way is the issue, right? Everyone knows it consciously. Oh, I've heard instant gratification, long-term, but it's a matter of getting yourself to operate in that way. That's where the real power is. Knowledge is only powerful when you actually implement it or use it in your life.
Right. Well, I couldn't be more in alignment with you. And I want to break this down a little bit because really the show is cruxed on good and bad decisions. I genuinely believe that we are where we are because of the decisions that we've made. And so what's a decision that you've made, or maybe something that the listener can do today? We're talking about this superhuman effect of I'm going to go win in all areas, but it's based on belief, self-confidence, self-image. And then there's like this next level of action and the next level of all these things we got to go do. Okay, well, what's the first thing, or what's the best decision that you've made that we could go implement in this direction?
Yep. The first and biggest impact in your life is literally boiled down to one thing. Keep your promises to yourself. It's literally that simple. I mean, think about it this way. It's like, what would your body look like right now if you kept your word to work out and eat healthy from 2 years ago? How much further along in your business would you be if you kept your word to be productive and hammer out your to-do list every single day? And how would this change in your productivity and what you're accomplishing, change how you feel about yourself? And so it's like, we never tell ourselves we're going to do something that doesn't benefit our life. No one wakes up and goes, oh, let me drink a bunch of alcohol and eat a bunch of bad food today. It's like, no, you don't do that. You only tell yourself things that are going to improve your life. And so being able to form the habit of keeping your promises to yourself is profound. It's literally what separates the most successful entrepreneurs. Like, you won't find many multi-seven-figure entrepreneurs and beyond that break their promises and their commitments to themselves. They just don't. And so I mean, then you look at some of the entrepreneurs that are stuck in the 5 or low 6 figures, and they tend to break their promises to themselves. And because of that, they lose confidence in themselves. They don't know if they're going to be productive. They don't know if they're going to do these things they know they need to do. And so that's really the one key I'd really boil into anyone that's trying to level up themselves, their business, and their life.
Yeah, I love that. We were in that same group just this past week in Colorado. We were talking about differentiators between entrepreneurs. Of course, I've interviewed hundreds at this point, successful entrepreneurs like yourself, and we were talking about differentiators. And one of the things I said is like, I know based on my experience with the 5 guys that I was with, as well as all the ones that I've interviewed that have been, super successful. And it's like, I know that in whatever situation, even though they may not have the answer initially figure it out, but eventually that they will, because they've already proven it in history. Like, I can look back on my history and I can go, okay, there's been moments where I didn't know what to do, or I was in a sticky situation and I still figured it out. And so this history that we can look back on, right? David Goggins calls it the cookie jar. You look back, And you can go, I freaking crushed it then. I now have even more belief that even though maybe I don't know what to do now, or it's in that moment where you're like, oh, do I keep my promise to myself? I'm going to re-up and go, well, of course I am, because I've done it before. I know that I can do it. And this is how I win.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying? In that moment, you're able to look back on the history? And if so, what if somebody's listening right now and they don't have that history yet? What do they do?
Yeah, I don't even like the perspective of having to look back. Yeah, that can give you some reassurance, but it's all about what you do in the present moment. Your past is irrelevant. Yeah, I mean, you can look at the past and say, oh, I haven't been able to do this in the past, or I have, and that might make you more prone to either take action or not take action because you formed that habit. But you don't need to be looking at the past, in my opinion. It's like just a matter of making the decision that's going to benefit your long-term in that moment. So that's another thing is like a lot of these entrepreneurs, especially the ones I work with, they view like each day as a loss or a win. So if they make one bad mistake, they're like, oh, today's ruined. Tomorrow I'll get back on track. And they make a series of more poor decisions. But I'm like, you can only ever make decisions in the present moment. And so it's like this fallacy that of them just saying, oh, I lost today. But it's about conquering as many of the small battles in your day as possible. It's not binary, did I win today or lose today? It's how many of the battles did I win today? How many did I lose today? And then reflect, like, okay, maybe you made some poor choices that you regret and you aren't happy with and you beat yourself up. Well, okay, analyze it. What caused you to be in that situation where you were more prone to say no to the decisions? Were you so exhausted? Or were you in a bad mental state? Okay, what are you going to do in the future? Because the thing is, you're going to have more times in the future where you are tired, where you are in a bad mental space. But are you just going to give up every single time you're in that situation? Or do you want to find a solution so that next time you don't repeat the same mistakes?
Yeah. Do you find, Adam, that moment right there where it's like push comes to shove and I'm really faced with that specific decision? Is it the pain of I don't want this to keep going the same direction that makes me go, you know what? Enough is enough? Or is it confidence in myself that something can be different? Like, what's different about that moment when you make that decision? Because both you and I are using a similar language. Mm-hmm. But for you, for your clients, what happens in that moment for them to like really solidify and actually make that decision?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I know exactly what happens to solidify that decision in that exact moment because I'm not with them when they make that decision. But I would talk about a little bit of the change that happens beforehand to cause them to make better decisions. And yeah, a lot of it's just kind of realizing what their life's going to look like in 2, 5, 10 years if they continue on this trajectory. And again, just really giving them that perspective shift that motivates them or inspires them to create the change in their life. So that's really what our program does is it kind of walks them through this process that opens up their level of awareness and shows them what's going to be their life if they don't change anything and why this is so important to them. And usually as they walk through this process, it gets easier and easier to make the change. And then guess what happens? Week 2, week 3, things start to become habits. And now this momentum is now lifting you up rather than pulling you back. That same force that was pulling you back and causing you to self-sabotage and procrastinate, now it's lifting you up. Then when you get to that point, you pretty much win because then it's like easy. You got the momentum carrying you forward and boom.
That's right. That's right. Even if you do make the wrong choice in that moment, it's easy to just pick right back up and keep going. Mm-hmm. It's good to know that, that it takes a process. That can also be scary though. For somebody listening right now, that's like, oh man, it's good to hear that I don't have to be perfect right away. Mm-hmm. But what you just said was like, I got to like work this thing out. Mm-hmm. Is this a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of years? What do you find in your history?
So it can literally happen in an instant. And I know even as I say that, people will not believe me, but that's the simple truth. We've had people come in here and they start watching the lessons and literally it resonates so deeply with them that they're just like, holy shit. And they embody that person they need to be, or they embody the person they want to become. That entrepreneur that can achieve their goals. And it will literally just like, boom, instant. And they just take off. 9 months later, their business valuations shoot up by over $500,000. They're adding hundreds of thousands in additional profits. However, for most people, it usually takes somewhere in that 30 to 60 day range. But it obviously depends on each person and then also the age of each person. I find that the younger people are, the easier it is to get them to change because they're less solidified in their old habits, right? If you give me a 55-year-old and a 20-year-old, the 20-year-old's more likely to get that transformation sooner. But in the grand scheme of it, it's like we'll still get the 50-year-old there, but usually takes like 30 to 60 days.
Yeah. Inside of that time frame, I can relate to that just because obviously I've done major work on me and my mind and these types of things you're talking about as far as building confidence, habits, like all the stack here that we're talking about. And I can tell you, even in the last couple of 2, 3, 4, 5 months, there's been a couple of things that I've talked about doing, but I had that moment where I knew it would be different going forward. And I don't know if I can explain necessarily in that moment what it was either, except for that I had been priming my subconscious before that, that this is who I am. This is what I believe. These are the things that I know that I can do. And so whatever happened in that moment, it happened so seamlessly because I was ready for it.
Yeah, and so you brought up a good point, the subconscious. And so this is why most people procrastinate, is because they consciously know what they need to do. Like every New Year's resolution is a perfect example of this. You know what you need to do, and you declare you're going to do something, but we all know what happens. Within 3 weeks, 95% of people fail to maintain their New Year's resolutions. The reason why you consciously know what you need to do, but fail to consistently do it is, again, 95% of your actions are derived from your subconscious mind. This is why you've likely had times where you're driving and you zone out, only for you to magically appear at your destination with no conscious recall of how you got there. Your subconscious mind took over. Now, the only way to escape this vicious cycle of self-sabotage is by linking your two minds together so that they work together. So that when you tell yourself, tomorrow, I'm going to get up and build this business and hammer out my to-do list and hit the gym, you actually do it, and you feel excited to do it. So that's really the process that we do to take our students from self-sabotage to superhuman CEO.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, let's flip the coin here. We talked about you / our listeners making a good decision by, being able to change the trajectory really of what they're deciding on. What about a bad decision? What have you made, maybe even tactically in your business, that we can maybe stay away from?
Yeah, I guess some bad decisions. Well, I wouldn't even say they're like bad decisions because they've led to where I'm at right now. But I guess like one of the bad decisions was just choosing the wrong niche. Like when I first started this whole procrastination offer, I was working with men in general rather than entrepreneurs. And so it's just a difference in mindset and then obviously what I could get paid as well. So I would say that was a bad decision, but I mean, ultimately it's part of the journey. So I don't really consider it a bad decision. But yeah, I would say that's one of the mistakes I took on personally.
Yeah. And so we hear a lot of times, niching down is important. And I agree. But you did niche down, but what you're saying is that you just niched down in the wrong niche for you. And so what can the listener take away from that? How do they know if they're in the wrong niche, or how can they make the change like you did if they do realize right now that they're in the wrong niche?
Yeah, so few different factors here. Is one, the way I like to perceive it is, look, I'm going to put in this amount of time and energy for one person that I serve regardless, because my program's 1-to-1. So, okay, with that being said, do I want to make less money or more money? Obviously, I want to make more money. And if your answer is less money, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? But anyways, with that being said, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, is the person I'm serving right now going to be able to pay me more or the most possible? Or is there a different demographic that would be able to pay me more? Going back to my reflection was like, look, I was working with 9-to-5ers, but it's like, even if I improve them and get them to this place where they're one of the 1% top performers in the entire world, well, guess what? Their income isn't going to increase that much unless they go find a new job, which actually has happened. But whereas if I get this transformation in an entrepreneur, well, their business is literally going to make millions of dollars more in the long run, and so thus they can pay way more. And the second part to that is, I actually enjoy working with these entrepreneurs a lot more because it's just like a different mindset they have. The 9-to-5ers, they're not as like fully committed because it's like, again, they're like, oh, it's okay. My business, my revenue isn't going to change too much. Whereas the entrepreneur, their business is their livelihood. And if they're the biggest bottleneck in their business because of procrastination, or they feel like they can't get out of their own way, well, guess what? They're going to be more motivated to change it. Yeah,
I agree with that completely. The value that you bring to the result of that individual is greater. So of course they're willing to pay for it. I think that that's an important thing for the listener to break down. It's not, yes, from a selfish perspective, you as the person, Adam, or the listener as the business owner, the service provider, is you want to get paid the most. Okay, fine. But really what that means is that you're adding so much more value to this specific person as opposed to the same service, same deck, same remodel, same a marketing campaign. So let's transition here. Let's make this just an easy transition. We've got this superhuman place that I believe all entrepreneurs want to be, right? Like like you said earlier, there's no entrepreneur that says, I want to be average, or I want to just be like right here, But there is a difference between this person here
Mm-hmm.
and the person that operates in the 1%. You're helping them get there, but what's one more piece, one more factor that we can maybe wrestle around with? That's the biggest difference that you see between this person that says that they want awesome life or the exceptional life, is all I like to say, and the person that actually is living the exceptional life.
Yeah, and so I'm a little hesitant to even say this because everyone's heard it, but again, it's one of those things like, do you understand it or do you know it on a deep level and actually apply it? And so one of them is just going to be victim mentality and making excuses for why you can achieve the things, or finding solutions and stepping into your power by being 100% responsible for all the results in your life. And again, I know people are saying, oh, here's another person talking about victim. Oh, I know this. Okay, well then answer me this. How many times in your day do you make excuses for why you couldn't hit the gym? Oh, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have the energy. Okay, good one. Elon Musk is running 3 separate multi-billion-dollar businesses.
Right.
And somehow he has time to go train to fight Mark Zuckerberg, but somehow you don't have time in your day. Like, that's a victim mentality, right? So it's one of those things. There's knowing and there's understanding, which doesn't grant you much power. It makes sense consciously, but knowing comes from a deep place of experience and actually applying it, because then you gain the power. And so that's going to be one of the biggest things I see the difference in.
Okay, and so what's an action step that the listener can take today to go from understanding, because they're hearing you. Mm-hmm. They have an understanding consciously of like, okay, I gotta go do this thing that Adam's telling me. Mm-hmm. But what's the actual thing in there to get it deep down?
Yeah, so again, a lot of it's just going to be reflecting on your life, because it all comes down to like awareness. And so every single day you should be reflecting back on your day. Okay, where did I not achieve what I set out to? Where did I feel bad about kind of caving into my emotions? When did I feel weak and powerless? And you can realize every single time you're in one of those states that I mentioned, you were being a victim and didn't find a solution. You fed into making excuses for why you can achieve something. And so going back and reflecting on your day allows you to be like, okay, well, what could I have done differently? Where could have I found a solution to that problem, rather than feeding into the excuses and the thoughts coming up in my mind? And then with that analyzing, well, guess what? Now tomorrow, you're going to be able to actually fix it and step into your power by finding that solution and applying it. So for example, we can keep going with that like weightlifting one, for example. It's like, maybe you're like, oh, I didn't have time to work out, or I was too tired after work. Okay, that's you being a victim, you stepping into your power, saying, you know what? I'm going to work out tomorrow right away before I even start my day, so that it gets done no matter what. It's like so simple, but literally so powerful. And so that's one of the ways to really just recognize it is, first, you have to be aware of the problem, and thus reflecting is probably one of the best things you could do.
Yeah, I want to share just a personal history on this, because what you're sharing is really powerful, and then it feeds on itself, like we talked about a little bit ago. Once you hit the gym in the morning tomorrow, just to make sure that it gets done, the next day you're more likely to hit the gym because you did it yesterday or you did it today, whatever that example is. And so there was something I used to write, or I started writing. I have a morning visualization. I'm sure you teach your students something similar, but I put in there, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, that I only eat things that serve me, that don't steal from me. So subconsciously, I'm training myself to make good decisions in the moment of what I eat. And I'm a pretty good eater, but I got a sweet tooth, let's just say, or I used to have a sweet tooth. Let's just say it like that. Right. And so even just this weekend, it's my grandmother's 80th birthday. We're here celebrating on the lake. It's a fantastic weekend. And some of my favorite desserts got made. And my grandma's like, are you going to have a piece? I'm like, no, I only eat things that serve me, Grandma. And
powerful.
Right? Because for the last however many days, I've been saying this out loud and to myself, training the subconscious, like you've been saying, so that way in the moment, it's like, I'm not doing it. How could I go back on myself? Because to your point earlier, it's something that I've now put out as stake for me, and I'm not going to, why would I treat myself badly?
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like getting yourself to a state where you're truly committed to what you want. Because when you're truly committed, it's no longer a possibility. Like when they pull out that dessert or whatever it was, it's not even an option of I'm going to eat that, because in your mind you already accepted I'm committed, and I don't care if every place was to just deliver this favorite dessert to me. You're not going to eat it because you're actually committed. The option isn't even in your mind. It doesn't even exist in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the important thing that I think both you and I could give to the listener right now is knowing that, like, not only is it possible to get to that place where I've made the decision, it's no longer even a thing.
Option.
Yeah, it's not even an option. But that even in that moment, as I've been building that, or like what you're talking about going to the gym, you still have to consciously make that choice. Even though the subconscious is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, sometimes you have to help it along the way. You're like, we all still have those moments where you're like,
yeah, oh, you still have the resistance or the internal battles. Yeah.
You're going to wake up tomorrow and I bet you, even though you've been going to the gym every single day for however many years, there's at least one voice in there somewhere that says, it'll be better in your bed. Go back to sleep. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
But we just have a better
ability
fighting
to ignore
plan.
that.
Yeah, to slap that guy in the face and say, just get out of the way.
Yeah.
You know? Let's talk about this obsession of superhuman, but there's a section of life that we haven't hit yet, and it's family or marriage or the things that are maybe close to us that aren't business or fitness. How do I, as a business owner, obsess over those things at the same time as the business and the fitness and like all these things? It feels like a little overwhelming of like, I got to obsess on all these things at the same time, but I know it's possible. You know it's possible. How does the listener do it?
Yeah, so again, a lot of it's just going to come down to prioritizing and time management, right? And so everyone's a little bit different in terms of their schedule. I mean, I have clients that one of their biggest core values is their family. So what they do is they're like, Adam, I know if sometimes I just get too distracted with work. So they work for a few hours in the morning, then they have this set time in their schedule where they spend an hour and a half with his wife and with his children. Look, sometimes as an entrepreneur, sometimes we get so focused and narrow focused on our business that we disregard other aspects of our life. So we have to make the conscious effort. And personally, I find that just simply blocking time into your schedule, and especially it's double whammy if you can make it so like you can use that time as breaks, because like obviously if you're staring at a computer screen for 3 hours, your efficiency starts to go down. Your brain's not thinking as clearly. And so it's like, okay, maybe you schedule a 30-minute walk in with your girlfriend and then you go for a walk, come back, you're productive at work, and then you take another lunch break and spend time with her. But obviously it depends on your girlfriend or wife's and your family schedule, but it's really just about putting the conscious effort into it and then planning it so that you're actually successful in the execution.
Yeah, I think that you're spot on. The time management is the baseline place to start, and then the commitment of what you've been talking about this entire podcast. The decision is then to stick with it, because I think for a long time I said those things were important to me, but they weren't on the calendar. Yeah. So then you put them on the calendar, but then maybe there's a listener that was like me. It was like, even though it was on the calendar, then it was like, I'll get to that, And so I think it's just at this level of awareness, like you're talking about, you make the decision that's like, no, this is important to me. And I've already made the decision. Now it's just sticking to it, because I'm not going to rob myself or my family or fill in the blank or whatever the
it's like you almost have to think, it's like if you're like most of the entrepreneurs I work with, like you're trying to grow your business for your family, so you have the freedom of time and money to spend with them and to travel with them and to take your wife to nice dinners. But it's like, if you spend your 6 hours or 6 years of building your business and you disregard your family, they may not be there for you at the end of it, right? And so it's really just getting the perspective to realize, if it's more important to you, you have to set your priorities like in order with your core values. And otherwise, you're going to get to a point where you kind of start self-sabotaging yourself in that regard too. You're going to start hating your life, feeling like things aren't right internally, and it's because you're out of alignment with your core values.
Yeah, love that. We could spend probably a whole podcast just on that. But for the sake of time here, Adam, I got to ask you one last question. I want to know if you had the opportunity to whisper in the younger Adam's ear, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to start his business sooner and to focus all of his energy and time into personal development. Because again, like my business only started growing when I became a more powerful version of myself. And so I think for anyone that's listening to this, look at how you're spending your time, because you go to where your attention is. So if you spend your time playing video games and watching TV, it's like that's time and energy taken away from your personal growth that's going to lead you to the success in the business that you want.
Yeah, love that. I want to give the opportunity for the listeners to find you. Adam, how can the listener find you if they're an entrepreneur listening right now and they want to become superhuman? How can they find you? Or if they're just wanting to network with you, get to know you a little bit better, find some of your content, where can they find that?
Yes, 2 different places. So the first place is you can go to superhumanceo.com, and then you'll see our training, have a chance to book a time to speak with me or my team, Or the second place is you can find me on Instagram. It's Adam Lucero, Lucero, then the number 1. So Adam Lucero 1.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes as well. The podcast length of time here doesn't give us enough for you to be able to really showcase all of your talents, but you have not only built some incredible things yourself, but the information that you gave here today will help thousands of people listening. And so for that, I appreciate that. And thank you. I hope that the listener takes you seriously, because that's what I have found is that the information that Adam gives like this, you have a choice. We've talked a lot about choices here today. And Adam's given you plenty to go make a choice and make things different in your life. Could be even the choice to reach out to him and change your life. So Adam, blessings to you and all that you have going on in 2023. Thank you for being here, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.